Come with me. 3 simple words that would change 3 lives forever on the coldest October night when a single father found a paralyzed young woman sleeping on concrete beside an empty bus stop. She'd been there since yesterday. He couldn't leave her there for another freezing night. But what happened when he brought her home would prove that sometimes the most broken people create the strongest families. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Miss, are you all right? The words cut through the October wind as Jacob Brennan stood frozen outside the 24-hour pharmacy, his truck still running, medicine for his sick daughter clutched in his hand. But it wasn't the cold making him stop. It was the figure huddled against the bus stop across the street, not even on the bench, but on the freezing concrete beside it. The young woman lifted her head slowly. Even in the dim streetlight, Jacob could see she couldn't be older than 25. Her blonde hair was matted, her face gaunt, but her eyes held a wariness that made his chest tighten. "I'm fine," she said quietly, her voice hoarse. "Just waiting." Jacob glanced at his watch. 11:47 p.m. The buses stopped running at 10. It's almost midnight. The woman tried to shift position but winced. "I know. I don't have anywhere else to go right now." Those words hung in the air between them. Jacob's hand instinctively went to his jacket pocket where Sophie's fever reducer was getting warm. His 7-year-old was at home with Mrs. Kowalski, burning up with fever waiting for medicine. He should go. Any reasonable person would go. "How long have you been out here?" "Since yesterday," she admitted, then quickly added, "But I'm okay, really. I've managed before." Since yesterday. The words hit Jacob like a physical blow. This young woman had been sleeping on concrete for over 24 hours, in the wheelchair, in October, and she was trying to convince him she was fine. Jacob found himself crouching down to her level, his knees protesting against the cold pavement. "What's your name?" "Ella," she said, after a pause. "Ella Winters." "I'm Jacob Brennan." He stood up, running his hair through his hair, a nervous habit he couldn't shake. The motion knocked his wallet from his pocket, and a photo fluttered to the ground. Ella reached for it before he could, her movements surprisingly quick. She stared at the picture, him and a little girl with curls, both grinning at the camera, matching father-daughter dance sashes across their formal clothes. "You have a daughter?" she asked, something shifting in her expression. "Sophie. She's 7, thinks she knows everything about everything." His voice softened automatically, the way it always did when he talked about Sophie. "Lost her mom 3 years back. It's just us now." The admission hung between them, unexpected and raw. Jacob hadn't meant to share that. But something about this moment, this woman alone in the dark, made the truth slip out. Ella handed the photo back carefully. "She's beautiful. She has your smile. She has her mother's everything else." Jacob tucked the photo away. Then, before he could second-guess himself, before logic could override instinct, he spoke again. "Come with me." Ella looked up at him, confusion crossing her features. "What?" "Come with me," Jacob repeated, more firmly this time. "It's supposed to drop below freezing tonight. There's a cold front coming through. You can't stay here." I can't pay you or anything. I don't need charity." "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a warm place for the night. My daughter's sick. I need to get home with her medicine, and I can't leave knowing you're spending another night on concrete. I just can't."
"You don't even know me. I could be dangerous. I could be—" "You're not," Jacob said simply. "Dangerous people don't worry about being dangerous." Ella stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for something, maybe sincerity, maybe threat, maybe just trying to understand why a stranger would stop on a cold night for someone society had clearly forgotten. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why do you care?" Jacob thought about lying, thought about giving some easy answer about civic duty or human kindness, But looking at this young woman who'd been invisible to everyone else for 2 days, he told the truth. Because 3 years ago, right after my wife died, I stood in a pharmacy parking lot just like this one, holding Sophie, completely lost. I didn't know how I was going to make it through the night, much less raise a daughter alone. An old man stopped, saw me crying, and said 5 words that saved me. "You don't have to hurry." He stayed with me for an hour, just talking, until I could breathe again. I never even got his name. Jacob extended his hand. "So I'm asking you, let me be that person for you tonight. Just tonight. Tomorrow you can go back to managing on your own if that's what you want. But tonight, come with me." The October wind picked up, rattling the empty bus stop sign. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. The pharmacy's neon light flickered. And in that moment, Ella Winters made a decision that would change everything. She took his hand. Getting Ella into the truck was a process. She insisted on doing as much as she could herself, transferring from the wheelchair to the passenger seat with practiced movements, despite her obvious exhaustion. Jacob folded the wheelchair, heavier than he expected, and secured it in the truck bed with bungee cords he always kept handy. "It's not far," he said, climbing into the driver's seat. "About 15 minutes. Ella nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Now that she agreed to come, the weight of trust seemed to settle on her shoulders. Following a stranger home in the middle of the night, Jacob understood how much courage that took.
"Tell me about Sophie," Ella said suddenly. "What's wrong with her?" "Fever and cough. Started yesterday morning, got worse tonight. She's tough, though. Tougher than me most days." Jacob turned onto the main road. "She tried to convince me she was fine because she didn't want to miss school tomorrow. They're doing volcano projects." "Volcanoes?" A small smile crossed her face. "I loved those projects as a kid. Made one with my grandmother once. Baking soda and vinegar, the whole works. We added red food coloring and dish soap. The kitchen was a disaster." It was the first personal thing she'd shared, and Jacob tucked it away carefully. Raised by a grandmother then. No mention of parents. "Sophie's is supposed to erupt tomorrow. She's been working on it for weeks. Paper mache, painted to look like Mount St. Helens. She even researched the actual eruption patterns." He glanced at Ella. "She gets the perfectionism from her mother." "And what does she get from you?" "The stubborn streak and the inability to leave well enough alone," Jacob said, and was rewarded with something that might have been a laugh. They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The heater finally kicked in properly, and Jacob saw Ella's shoulders slowly relax as warmth filled the cab. "Can I ask?" Jacob started, then stopped. "Sorry, you don't have to answer anything." "You want to know about the wheelchair," Ella said. It wasn't a question. "I want to know if you're okay," Jacob corrected gently. "The wheelchair is just part of it." Ella was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, staring out at the passing streetlights, she began to speak. 2 years ago, construction accident. I was an electrician's apprentice, good at it too. There was a scaffolding collapse at the site. 3 stories. She paused. The company said I violated safety protocols. I didn't, but they had better lawyers. Lost the workers' comp case. Lost everything while I was recovering. "That's not right." "Lot of things aren't right," Ella said quietly. "But you learn to adapt. Or you don't survive." Jacob turned into his neighborhood. Modest houses with small yards, porch lights creating pools of yellow in the darkness. Mrs. Kowalski's house still had the living room light on. "That's my neighbor," Jacob explained, seeing Ella tense. "She watches Sophie when I have to go out. She'll probably come over tomorrow to check on us. Fair warning, she'll try to feed you. Resistance is futile." "Are you sure about this?" Ella asked as they pulled into his driveway. There might be another shelter with space, or—" "I'm sure," Jacob said firmly. He came around to help with the wheelchair, but Ella was already transferring herself out, independent, even in exhaustion. The house was nothing special, a 3-bedroom ranch that needed new gutters and had a front step that creaked, but it was warm and it was safe. And right now, that was everything. "Let me check on Sophie first," Jacob said, unlocking the door. "Make yourself comfortable. Kitchen's through there if you're hungry, bathroom's down the hall." He paused, suddenly uncertain. "Is it accessible? I mean, can you—" "I'll manage," Ella assured him. "I've gotten good at managing.
Go check on your daughter." Sophie's room was dimly lit by her butterfly nightlight. Jacob could hear her breathing, still congested but more even than before. He touched her forehead, definitely cooler. The earlier dose of medicine must have helped. He gave her the new dose anyway, smoothing her hair back from her face. "Daddy?" she mumbled without opening her eyes. "Right here, sweetheart." "Did you get my medicine?" "I did. And something else. We have a visitor who needs our help. Is that okay?" "Like when we helped that bird with the broken wing?" "Kind of like that, yeah." "Okay. Can I meet them tomorrow?" "If you're feeling better. Sleep now, baby." She was already drifting off again, one hand clutching her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy. When Jacob returned to the living room, he found Ella hadn't moved from just inside the doorway, as if she was afraid to enter any further. "I don't want to impose." "You're not. Are you hungry? I can heat up some soup. There's leftover chicken noodle, Sophie's favorite when she's sick." Her stomach chose that moment to growl audibly, and she flushed. "Maybe a little hungry."
Have you ever seen someone try not to cry over a bowl of soup? Jacob watched as Ella took her first spoonful of the reheated chicken noodle, her eyes closing as if it was a gourmet meal instead of something from a can he doctored with extra vegetables. "When did you last eat?" he asked gently. "Yesterday morning. The shelter had breakfast before my time was up." "The 30-day limit?" She looked surprised. "You know about that?" "My company does volunteer work sometimes. Riverside Shelter, right? They're good people, but overwhelmed. They tried to help, gave me information about other places, but they're all full or don't have wheelchair access or—" She stopped, took another spoonful of soup. "It doesn't matter. I've slept in worse places." "It does matter," Jacob said firmly. "You matter." The words seemed to break something in Ella. She set down her spoon, her hands trembling slightly. "You don't understand. Nobody just helps anymore. There's always a catch, always something they want. So what do you want? Because I need to know now, before I get comfortable, before I let myself believe. I want you to be safe tonight. I want you to be warm. I want you to eat until you're full and sleep without worrying about freezing or being hurt. That's all. Nobody does that for free. My wife did. Catherine would have had you inside with a blanket and hot chocolate before I even finished parking the truck. She believed in helping first, asking questions later. She would have said it was the right thing to do. And you? What do you believe?" He thought about it. Really thought about it. "I believe that we're all just trying to make it through. And sometimes, on the really dark nights, we need someone to remind us that morning's coming." They sat in silence while Ella finished her soup, then another bowl, then a sandwich Jacob insisted on making. As she ate, she began to talk, small things at first, how she'd been an honor student, how she'd gotten her apprenticeship through a vocational program, how she was saving for college when the accident happened. "I was going to be an electrical engineer. Had it all planned out, work during the day, classes at night. I was good with circuits, understanding how power flows, how to make things work." "You still are," Jacob pointed out. "The accident didn't change your mind." "No, but try explaining that to anyone. They see the chair first. Sometimes they don't see anything else at all."
It was nearly 2 a.m. when Jacob showed Ella to the spare room. It was cluttered with boxes and Sophie's old toys, but the bed was clean and the heat worked. "This is too much," Ella started. "It's a bed and a roof. That's not too much. That's basic human decency." He paused at the door. "The bathroom's right across the hall. There are clean towels in the cabinet. If you need anything—" "Jacob," Ella stopped him. "Why did you really stop tonight? The truth." He turned back to face her. "You want the truth? When I saw you there, I saw every night I felt invisible after Catherine died. Every night I sat in Sophie's room, wondering how I was going to make it to morning. I saw someone who needed to be seen, really seen.
And I couldn't drive away from that. Ella nodded slowly, understanding passing between them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will figure itself out." But tomorrow came faster than expected. At 6 a.m., Jacob woke to the sound of voices, Sophie's high-pitched giggle, and another voice, patient and warm. He found them in the kitchen, Sophie still in her pajamas with bedhead, sitting at the table while Ella braided her hair. "Dad," Sophie announced, "Miss Ella knows how to do a fishtail braid, a real one." "I can see that," Jacob said, trying to process the scene. His daughter, who usually took weeks to warm up to anyone, chatting away like she'd known Ella forever. "She's in a wheelchair," Sophie had informed him matter-of-factly. "Like Professor X. She's already told me about her accident, and I told her about Mom and Mr. Hoppy. Did you know she can fix electrical stuff?" "Sophie, let Miss Ella breathe," Jacob said, starting the coffee maker. "It's fine," Ella said, securing the braid with one of Sophie's purple hair ties. "She's been telling me about her volcano project. Sounds like you have a future scientist here." "It's supposed to erupt today, but I don't think I can go to school," Sophie said sadly, then coughed for emphasis. "Definitely staying home," Jacob confirmed. "I'll email your teacher." "But my volcano!" "We'll wait until you're better," Ella said gently. "Real scientists don't rush their experiments."
That first day set a pattern none of them expected. Jacob called into work, he had sick days saved up, and the three of them spent the day in a strange but comfortable bubble. Ella helped Sophie improve her volcano, while Jacob caught up on laundry and bills. It felt, in a word Jacob wouldn't let himself think too hard about, normal. "She's really smart, Dad," Sophie whispered loudly while Ella was in the bathroom, "and she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby." "I noticed," Jacob said, watching his daughter's face light up in a way it hadn't in months. That evening, while Sophie napped on the couch, Ella insisted on looking at the electrical outlet in the kitchen that had been sparking. "You don't have to," Jacob started. "I want to. It's dangerous, especially with Sophie in the house." She examined the outlet with practiced eyes. "You have tools?" 20 minutes later, she diagnosed and fixed the problem, a loose wire that could have started a fire. "You saved us," Jacob said, impressed. "You saved me first," Ella replied, simply. 3 days passed, then a week. Jacob went back to work, but Ella stayed, helping with Sophie, organizing the chaos that had accumulated since Catherine's death, bringing order to their disrupted life. She insisted it was temporary, just until she figured out her next move. "The shelter might have space next week," she mentioned on day 10. "Right," Jacob said. "Or there's a program downtown." "Sophie would miss you," he interrupted, then cleared his throat. "I mean, if you left suddenly, she's gotten attached." "Just Sophie?" The question hung unasked between them. Week 2 brought a routine. Ella would get Sophie ready for school while Jacob made breakfast. They'd all eat together, like a family, though no one said that word. Jacob would drop Sophie off on his way to work. Ella would spend the day applying for jobs online, making calls, fighting the bureaucracy that came with her situation. "Another rejection," she said one afternoon when Jacob came home early. "They say they're inclusive, but when they hear wheelchair—" "Their loss," Jacob said firmly. "You fixed 3 things in this house that I've been putting off for years." "House repairs don't pay bills." "They do if you're an electrician or an electrical engineer." "I never finished my degree." "So finish it." "With what money? And how?" "Online programs cost as much as regular ones."
That night, after Sophie was asleep, Jacob found Ella sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. "Talk to me," he said, sitting across from her. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared that I'm getting comfortable here, that Sophie's getting attached, that I'm—" She stopped. "That you're what?" "That I'm starting to feel like I belong somewhere again. And that's dangerous, because this isn't mine. This isn't permanent. This is just kindness with an expiration date." Jacob moved to sit beside her on the couch. "What if it didn't have to be?" "Jacob, no, listen. You're good for Sophie.
You're good for this house. You contribute, you help, you make things better. Why does it have to be temporary? Because that's not how the world works. People don't just take in strangers permanently. And I won't be anyone's charity case. I won't be the poor paralyzed girl you felt sorry for. Is that what you think you are to us? Isn't it? No, Jacob said firmly. You're the woman who makes Sophie laugh at breakfast. You're the person who fixed the death trap outlet and the leaky faucet and the squeaky door. You're the one who helps with homework and watches movies with us and makes this house feel less empty. Jacob, you're Ella, just Ella. The wheelchair is part of you, but it's not all of you, not to us. The moment stretched between them, fragile and important. Then Sophie's voice from the hallway broke it. Dad, Miss Ella, I had a bad dream. Ella moved first, instinctively. Come here, little one. Sophie climbed onto the couch between them, curling into Ella's side. I dreamed you left, she whispered to Ella. You went away like Mommy did. Oh, sweetheart, Ella said, her voice thick. I'm right here. Promise you won't leave? Ella looked at Jacob over Sophie's head. He saw the war in her eyes, the desire to comfort Sophie, battling with the fear of making promises she couldn't keep. I promise I won't leave without saying goodbye, she finally said. And I promise that as long as I'm here, I'll keep you safe and loved. Okay? Okay, Sophie mumbled, already falling back asleep. Have you ever watched someone realize they're home? Jacob saw it happen to Ella in that moment. Holding Sophie, being needed, being wanted, being family.
Week 3 brought the phone call that changed everything. Jacob came home to find Ella crying in the kitchen, her phone on the table in front of her. What's wrong? He was beside her immediately, afraid someone had called about a shelter space, afraid she was leaving. A law firm called, she managed between sobs, about my accident. A witness came forward, someone who was recording a video at the construction site. It shows everything, that I followed every safety protocol, that the company was negligent. That's good news, right? They want to reopen my case. They think I could get full compensation, medical bills, back pay, even money for school. She looked up at him, mascara streaking her cheeks. This could change everything. That's amazing, Ella. But something in his voice must have betrayed him, so she grabbed his hand. This doesn't mean I'm leaving. Not right away. The legal stuff will take months. And even when it's done... She paused. Jacob, you and Sophie saved my life. Literally. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night. You would have survived. You're a survivor. Maybe. But surviving isn't living. You reminded me what living feels like. The legal process was slow, but hope is a powerful thing. Ella attacked it with the same determination she brought to everything. Jacob helped where he could, driving her to meetings, watching Sophie during phone calls, being present in the quiet moments when the weight of possibility became overwhelming. Meanwhile, life continued. Sophie's volcano finally erupted at school to great acclaim. Ella taught her to wire a simple circuit for her next science project. Jacob learned to cook something besides soup and sandwiches, with Ella directing from her chair, laughing when he burned the first attempt. How did Catherine put up with you? She teased. She did all the cooking, I did all the dishes. It was a good system. Well, now you get to do both, Ella said, but she was smiling. Worth it, Jacob said, and meant it. Mrs. Kowalski from next door had opinions, as expected. About time you had help with Sophie, she told Jacob loudly over the fence. That girl needs a woman's influence. Mrs. K, you've been giving her plenty of woman's influence. Not the same, and you know it. That Ella, she's good people, has steel in her spine, and not just the medical kind.
4 months in, Ella started online courses in electrical engineering. She studied at the kitchen table while Sophie did homework, both of them focused and determined. You're a good influence on her, Jacob said one evening, watching them work. She's a good influence on me, Ella countered. She makes me want to be better, to show her that setbacks don't mean giving up. Sophie looked up from her math worksheet. Miss Ella, when I grow up, Can I be an engineer like you? You can be anything you want, sweetheart. Then I want to be like you and Dad, someone who helps people. Jacob saw Ella blink back tears. 6 months. The seasons changed. October's cold gave way to April's hope. The legal settlement was moving forward. Ella would have enough for her own place, her education, a fresh start. "We need to talk," she said one evening after Sophie was in bed. Jacob's heart sank. "You're leaving." "The opposite. I want to stay. But I need to know if that's what you want too. Really want. Not just allowing because you're kind." "Ella, let me finish. I love Sophie like she's my own. I love this house, this life we've built. I love... She stopped, took a breath. "I love this family. But if this is just convenience for you, if I'm just a good babysitter who pays rent, I need to know now." "You're not the babysitter," Jacob said quietly. "You haven't been for months. Then what am I?" Jacob thought about all the ways to answer, the complicated explanations, the careful words. Instead, he told the simple truth. "You're the person I look for when I come home. You're the one I want to tell about my day. You're who Sophie draws in her family pictures at school. You're..." He paused, gathering courage. "You're who I'm falling in love with. Have been for a while now." The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, Mrs. Kowalski's wind chimes sang in the spring breeze. "I can't have children," Ella said suddenly. "The accident. There was damage. If you want more kids..." "I want you," Jacob interrupted. "Sophie wants you. We want this family, the one we already have. I'm in a wheelchair. And I snore and can't cook and still forget to put the toilet seat down. We all have our challenges." "Jacob, be serious." "I am being serious. Your wheelchair doesn't change how I feel about you. It's part of you, and I love all of you." Ella rolled closer to where he sat, taking his hands. "I love you too, both of you. But love isn't always enough." "No," Jacob agreed. "But love and choice together, that's enough. And I choose you, Ella. I choose us. Every day. Even on the hard days? When accessibility's a problem, or people stare, or especially on the hard days. That's when choosing matters most."
18 months after that cold October night, the settlement came through, substantial enough for Ella to have real options. She could afford her own apartment, fully accessible, close to the university. She could start fresh, independent, free. They told Sophie over dinner, explaining that Ella had money now, that she could get her own place. Sophie's fork clattered to her plate. "You're leaving?" "Sophie," Ella started. "You promised." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "You promised you wouldn't leave without saying goodbye, but you also promised to keep me safe and loved, and you can't do that if you're gone." "I don't have to leave," Ella said quickly. "I have choices now." "Then choose us," Sophie cried. "We chose you. Dad chose you that night at the bus stop. I chose you when you did my hair. We keep choosing you every day. Why won't you choose us back?" Jacob watched Ella's face crumble. "Oh, sweetheart, I do choose you every single day." "Then stay." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is," Sophie interrupted with 7-year-old certainty. "Love is simple. You love someone, you stay with them. Mom couldn't stay because she died. But you're not dying. You're just scared." Out of the mouths of babes, Jacob thought, watching Ella process Sophie's words. "You're right. I am scared. I'm scared of being too much trouble, of not being enough. of taking advantage of your dad's kindness. My dad's not just kind, Sophie said firmly. He loves you. I heard him telling Mrs. K yesterday. Jacob flushed. Sophie, what? It's true. And Miss Ella loves us. So why is everyone making this so complicated? That night, after Sophie had cried herself out and fallen asleep on the couch between them, Jacob and Ella sat in the gentle darkness. She's not wrong, Jacob said quietly. No, Ella agreed. She sees things clearly. So, what do you want to do? Ella was quiet for a long moment. I want to use the settlement money to modify the house, make it fully accessible. I want to finish school. I want to contribute equally to this family. And I want... She paused, vulnerable. I want to marry you. Someday. When you're ready. If you ever are.
Jacob's breath caught. Ella, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other for months, not even up to years, but when you know, and I know I want this. Alas, forever. 2 years after that October night. The backyard was decorated with white lights and Sophie's handmade paper flowers. Mrs. Kowalski had invited the entire neighborhood, declaring it the event of the decade. Jacob stood at the makeshift altar, really just an arch of garden lattice decorated with ivy, watching Ella come down the aisle in her wheelchair, wearing a simple white dress and the biggest smile he'd ever seen. In his vows, Jacob said, 2 years ago, I thought I was rescuing you. But the truth is, you rescued us. Sophie and I were surviving, but we weren't living. You taught us that broken doesn't mean worthless, that different doesn't mean less than, and that sometimes the best families are the ones that find each other in the most unexpected ways. Ella's vows included, to Jacob, who saw me when I was invisible, who offered help without conditions and love without limits. To Sophie, who shared her dad with me when she didn't have to, who taught me that love isn't about being perfect or whole by the world's standards. It's about showing up, staying present, and choosing each other every single day. I choose you both, today and always. Sophie interrupted the kiss to hug them both, declaring loudly, Finally! Now, can we have cake? The reception was in the backyard, nothing fancy. Potluck dishes from neighbors, music from Jacob's old speaker, Sophie teaching everyone the electric slide with modifications she'd created so Ella could do it in her chair. No regrets? Jacob asked Ella, as they watched Sophie boss Mrs. Kowalski around on the dance floor. Only one, Ella said. What? I wish I'd said yes that first night when you asked me to come with you. Would have saved us all a lot of time. No, Jacob said thoughtfully. We needed the time. To choose each other over and over. To build this the right way. The right way, Ella repeated, smiling. From a bus stop to this. Best detour I ever took, Jacob said, spinning her chair gently to the music. Today, 5 years after that October night, Ella runs her own electrical consulting firm, specializing in accessible design for buildings. Her business cards read, Ella Brennan, CEO. She loves the sound of it, every time. Jacob still works at the plant, but no longer takes double shifts. He coaches Sophie's soccer team and is learning to bake. Badly, but with enthusiasm. Sophie, now 12, is the star of her science class and recently won the district science fair with a project on adaptive technologies that she developed with Ella. Last month, she had to write an essay about heroes for school. She stood at the front of the class and read, My hero isn't someone famous. Actually, I have 2 heroes. My dad, Jacob Brennan, who stops to help strangers even when he's scared and tired. He taught me that kindness isn't just about being nice, it's about taking action when someone needs help. And my mom, Ella Brennan, who proves every day that wheelchairs can't stop someone from standing tall. She taught me that family isn't about blood or about being perfect. It's about choosing each other, especially when things get hard. 5 years ago, my dad made a choice at a bus stop that changed our lives. He chose to see someone who needed help. He chose to act, and that choice gave me my mom. Some people think heroes wear capes or have superpowers. But real heroes drive trucks and fix electrical problems and make terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. Real heroes say, "Come with me," to strangers and mean it. Real heroes choose love over fear every single day. Sophie got an A+ on the essay. But more importantly, she asked to read it at Ella's company's 5th anniversary party last week. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, including Ella's and Jacob's. That night, as they tucked Sophie into bed, yes, she still liked being tucked in sometimes, she asked them a question. "Do you think Mom knows?" "Knows what, sweetheart?" Jacob asked. "My first mom, Catherine. Do you think she knows about our family now? That we're okay?" Eller and Jacob exchanged glances over Sophie's head. "I think," Ella said carefully, "I think love doesn't disappear when someone dies. I think your first mom's love is part of what brought us all together. Her love for you and your dad made you both the kind of people who could open your hearts to someone new."
"So she's still part of our family?" "Always," Jacob said, "just like you'll always be part of ours, no matter where life takes you." "I'm not going anywhere," Sophie declared. "Even when I'm old, I'll just build a bigger house for all of us." After she fell asleep, Jacob and Ella sat on the porch, watching the stars. The same stars that had witnessed that October night 5 years ago. "Ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stopped?" Ella asked. "I try not to," Jacob said honestly. "It hurts to think about." "I would have survived, somehow. I always did before. But Jacob," she turned to face him, "surviving isn't living. You didn't just save my life that night. You gave me a life worth living." "You gave us the same thing," Jacob said. "Before you, Sophie and I were just going through the motions. You brought light back into this house. We saved each other," Ella said simply. "The best rescues work that way," Jacob agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, the autumn air crisp around them. October again. Their month. Their beginning. "Jacob." "Yeah?" "Thank you for stopping, for seeing me, for everything." "Ella?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for saying yes, for coming with me, for staying." A car drove by, its headlights briefly illuminating them, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chose to step into the light together. Somewhere across town, someone else might be sitting at a bus stop tonight. Someone else might be driving by, wrestling with whether to stop. Someone else might be one moment of kindness away from a completely different life. But that's the thing about kindness. It multiplies. Sophie had already started volunteering at the shelter on weekends, bringing her friends along. She'd organized a wheelchair basketball game at school to raise awareness. She'd stood up to bullies who used words like crippled or invalid. Everyone's dealing with something, she'd say, wisdom beyond her years. Some people's struggles just show more than others.
And Ella? She employed 6 people now, 2 of whom also used wheelchairs. She'd created a scholarship fund for students with disabilities studying engineering. She spoke at schools about resilience, about adaptation, about the power of not giving up. But mostly, she just lived. Fully. Completely. Joyfully. She lived in the house with the modified ramps and the widened doorways, and the kitchen island at the perfect height for her chair. She lived with the man who saw her not as broken, but as whole. She lived with the daughter who called her mom and meant it with every fiber of her being. She lived with the knowledge that the worst thing that ever happened to her, that accident, had somehow led to the best thing. Not because suffering has meaning, but because people give meaning to suffering through their choices. Jacob chose to stop. Ella chose to trust. Sophie chose to love. And together they chose to build something beautiful from the broken pieces life had handed them. It started with 3 words on a cold October night. Come with me. 3 words that meant, you're not alone. You matter. You're seen. 3 words that became a bridge from despair to hope, from loneliness to family, from merely surviving to truly living. If this story touched your heart, remember to follow for more stories about the extraordinary power of ordinary kindness. Share this with someone who needs to remember that angels sometimes drive pickup trucks, and that families aren't always born, sometimes they're discovered at bus stops on the coldest October nights. Because here's what Jacob learned that night, what Ella discovered in the months that followed, what Sophie knew with the clarity of childhood. Love isn't about finding perfect people. It's about finding people whose imperfections fit perfectly with yours. It's about seeing someone at their lowest and choosing to lift them up, not because you have to, but because you can't imagine doing anything else. It's about understanding that come with me isn't just an invitation. It's a promise. A promise that says, your struggle is now our struggle. Your joy is now our joy. Your life is now part of our life. And that promise changes everything. Every single time.